structure is a high hazard dam, potential for high numbers of loss of life if it were to have a critical failure, and that's something we simply can't see, and so we're going to do everything we can to mitigate that risk going forward. The work is going to be divided into three phases, and I'll let the experts go into this in more detail. Really, I'm excited to be here with all of you and answer any of your questions. That's really what this is for, and to ensure that we have the plan in place to move forward with both federal funding and state cost share funding associated with the project. So with that, I'd like to introduce Scott Oconee from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who is the New England District Deputy Engineer for Project Management, and will help describe the Corps' role in the project before we pass it off to our congressional delegation staff to talk about the federal role.
All right, well, thanks, Commissioner. I appreciate the introduction. Hopefully everyone can hear me well. So I know we've got a lot of folks on the line, representatives from Senator Sanders and Leahy and Congressman Welch's office, other guests. Good morning. Glad to see you all here. I wish it was in person, but times are as they are. So as the Commissioner mentioned, I'm Scott Oconee. I'm the Deputy District Engineer for Programs and Project Management at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and New England District. It's my pleasure to be with you here today to talk a little bit about our role in the Dam Safety Modification Study and the rehabilitation project for Waterbury Dam. USACE has been involved in work on Waterbury Dam since its initial construction in 1938, successful partnership of 80 years, which is pretty remarkable when you think about that. The dam was built along with Wrightsville and East Barry dams in the 1930s for flood risk management primarily, and as a result of the 1927 floods, which were devastating to northern New England. USACE designed and constructed the dam between 1933 and 1938 for the state of Vermont. Later in the 1950s, a privately owned hydroelectric facility was constructed just downstream. And although the state of Vermont owns the dam and operates the dam and maintains it, the Corps of Engineers annually inspects it, and we provide those findings of our inspection to the state as recommendations for future actions. Over the years, our understanding of dam design and performance has improved, and as a result, we've undertaken a series of investigations and modifications to the dam over time to ensure its integrity. Most recently, we began a risk assessment of the dam in May of 2020. This includes a review of the current condition, updated hydrology, and a relook at dam vulnerabilities. What can we do to improve the safety to ensure that we get another 80 years out of this dam? So this month, USACE is starting the next step, which is called the Dam Safety Modification Study. The district and our state partners signed an agreement in December to complete this study and then follow on recommended rehabilitation work that comes out of the study. I don't want to steal any thunder from Ben. I know he's going to talk a lot more about the dam and the phases of the work we have going on, but the study is going to be a really critical component of it. We're going to evaluate and then compare alternatives for what we need to do to renovate the dam spillway and Tanner gates to bring them up to current standards. The study is expected to take about 2 years, and the recommendations will be used to move forward into design and then construction. Overall, the project will improve the long-term integrity and operation of the dam. At the Corps of Engineers, we understand how important this project is to the people of Vermont. The Commissioner mentioned it, so Waterbury Dam primarily exists to manage flood risk in vulnerable areas, but it's also critical for providing hydroelectric power. It's a popular local destination for camping, boating, swimming, fishing, and just being in nature, which right now is really important, I think, for a lot of folks. I know my first visit up there was probably in 1989 when we were doing some renovation work then. If the dam weren't functional, people and properties in Waterbury, Richmond, Essex Junction, Winooski, South Burlington, and everything in between would be at increased risk for flood damages. And so for these reasons, we look forward to working with Vermont on this important project to make sure the dam operates as intended and that the citizens of Vermont are safe. For our projects to be successful, we rely very heavily on our partners. And so I want to thank the state of Vermont for your significant efforts to get us to this point. I know it was not a small undertaking. And I also recognize this is just the beginning. And my team and I, many of whom are on this call, look forward to working with you as we successfully complete this work. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Coney. Appreciate your remarks and the engagement of your team. And I want to see whether our congressional delegation would like to say a few words, perhaps starting with Mr. Tom Barry. Are you available?
Yes, I'm on the call, and we'll say a few words. The Vermont congressional delegation has tracked the need for work at Waterbury Dam for a number of years now, and has done everything possible to keep the Corps as involved as possible in leading the efforts to repair the dam, and also in funding the work, because this is not an inexpensive undertaking. And we've been fortunate with Senator Sanders and Congressman Welch, both in good authorizing positions regarding the Corps, and Senator Leahy, of course, being senior on the Appropriations Committee. And that has helped to queue up where we find ourselves now, with the Corps fully engaged and the work funded. Senator Leahy had requested $40 million for the dam for this year as far as work. And we'd like to thank the Corps for initiating a new start for this project and adding the additional funds, 40 million needed to bring the, 20 million and 20 million in each case, to bring the full funding to the level needed to initiate the work, with every probability of the federal cost share being met, at least for the foreseeable number of years. And so we're in good shape right now, moving forward under the new start. And we can certainly take questions, but it is critical that we move the project forward in good shape at this time, while we have all of these elements aligned. And with that, I'll hand it off to Haley Perro of Senator Sanders' office, who can talk more about the authorizing side of this and some work that's ongoing there.
Great, thank you, Tom. My name is Haley Perro. I work in Senator Sanders' office here in Vermont, focusing on environmental issues. And I think Tom did a great job about sort of laying out where we are now after many years of effort to get some work done on this critical piece of infrastructure. As Tom mentioned, Senator Sanders is on the Authorizing Committee, EPW, and typically we see work on dams and work on other critical infrastructure authorized through the Water Resources Development Act, or WRDA. So over the last several WRDAs, which usually are every 2 years, we've had opportunities to see if we could get the Corps engaged as they are now, and we're really excited about that on this work. We have helped authorize through particular provision work on dams like we see in Vermont, ones that were built by the Corps and now are state owned. So we are really pleased to get that work authorized, have the new start lined up, and we're just happy that there's a lot of great partners here, the state, the Corps, the legislature, and the congressional delegation. We've really worked in coordination with each other, and we want to, be helpful where we can on this. We certainly have done quite a bit of work on the Senate side, but we've also really relied on our partnership with our friends of the House. So I think I will turn it over to Thea Wurtzberg in Congressman Welch's office.
Great, thank you, Haley. Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be here. Tom and Haley really covered most of the update, but I'll just say that, the congressman has been working really hard on the House side to make sure that this project moves forward and that it's affordable for the state of Vermont. And that's something that we're going to continue working on. Like Tom and Haley mentioned, we've worked to get that authorizing language included, and we were fortunate enough to be able to increase it in the last WRDA bill. And so moving forward, once we look at WRDA 2022, we will continue to focus on efforts to make sure that this project is affordable for the state. But like everyone has said, if you have any questions, please never hesitate to reach out to our offices, and we really look forward to continuing to support the state on this project and working with the Army Corps. So thank you.
All right, Thea, thank you very much. And Haley and Tom, really appreciate the engagement of the senators and the congressmen on this project, as always. And so now the main event, I wanted to introduce to you Mr. Ben Green, Chief Dam Safety Engineer for the state of Vermont. Ben has a presentation prepared about the dam. This is sort of a virtual tour. And Ben will be able to talk to you a little bit about some of the outcomes of the risk assessment. So Ben, if you would take it away.
Sure. So I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully, hopefully everyone can see that. If I get a thumbs up from you, Neil, maybe that's the first I can see right now on my screen. Yeah. So my name is Ben Green. I'm the Chief Dam Safety Engineer for the DEC Dam Safety Program, and this presentation today is about the Waterbury Dam. It will provide some historic information on the dam, a virtual tour of sorts, and discuss some of the preliminary findings of the risk assessment that's currently underway. As I mentioned, I work for the Dam Safety Program. We're a small program of just 2 engineers in the Water Investment Division within DEC, and we are the caretaker and owner representative at Waterbury Dam, as well as 13 other state-owned dams, including its sister flood control dams, Wrightsville Dam and East Barry Dam. In addition to the dam ownership piece, we also are dam regulators and regulate about 1,000 non-powered, non-federal dams statewide. As kind of mentioned before, this risk assessment is kind of the first step in a project to address deficiencies at the spillway of Waterbury Dam, which were first identified in the early 2000s. And this work is currently being performed by the good folks at the New England District of the Army Corps of Engineers. I would like to offer to anyone who'd like to learn more kind of beyond this presentation, I'd be happy to, once COVID slows down and the snow's off the dam, maybe later this year, to provide a site visit, site tour. Doing this kind of thing online is a little challenging, and if a picture can provide if a picture's worth 1,000 words, I think a site visit is probably worth 1,000,000 on a project like this. So from there, I just want to give a brief overview of the dam. For those not familiar, it is located on the Little River in Waterbury. The drainage area, or area that flows to the dam, is about 109 square miles, and that's mainly located to the north of the dam, with the peak of Mount Mansfield, Vermont's highest peak, as the northern divide. The dam is 187 foot tall and 2,100 feet long. I'd just like to note a few things in this image here. Hopefully you can see my cursor. This main portion of the dam is called the embankment. Over at this far end is a spillway section that includes 2 components, a gated and ungated spillway section. This red dashed line through the embankment here is meant to show the spillway, or excuse me, an outlet tunnel that conveys water from the reservoir through the dam and down to Green Mountain Power's hydro plant, as well as a bypass pipe that the state owns. Those are some of the key components. Just to the side of this dashed line, and I'll show it more in the next plan, but it's kind of the original alignment of the river through the dam was through this maximum section right here. The dam is the 3rd tallest dam in the state and the 4th largest from storage capacity standpoint. So it's a very major dam for Vermont, and it's certainly the largest owned by the state. As mentioned previously, it's a high hazard potential dam, meaning in the event of a failure, it's anticipated there would be loss of life. And the uses of the dam were alluded to earlier: flood protection, hydropower, and recreation. This slide is from a 1950s plan that was put together by the Army Corps of Engineers of the dam, just to kind of show it in a little different light than the image previously. Again, I'd like to point out, hopefully you can see my cursor. Here on the right end of this image is the 2 components of the spillway system. One is the gated portion. These are floodgates known as radial arm gates or Tainer gates, and then the ungated section of the spillway to the left of that. Again, we have the dashed line through the dam here, which represents the tunnel that conveys water from upstream to downstream, and on the crest of the dam is the gatehouse that intersects that tunnel, and at the downstream terminus we have the Green Mountain Power's plant, as well as we have a state bypass that's not very well shown in this image. I'd also like to point out this shaded area here that you see is actually the original river alignment prior to dam construction at the site. And I show this because it's kind of an important thing to understand as you look at this dam. This river alignment is basically a gorge, a cut through bedrock that the river made underneath the dam, or where the dam is now located. It's kind of been a historic weak point. So kind of having an understanding of what that looks like is kind of important to the overall project. So now to back up a little bit and just kind of provide some brief history of the dam. The dam was planned following the 1927 flood that killed 55 people in the Winooski Basin. It was completed in 1938 by the Army Corps of Engineers, designed by the Corps, built by the Civilian Conservation Commission, and then hand over to the state for ownership in perpetuity. There's been major since original construction, as alluded to previously. In the 1950s was the first one. In the 1950s, due to updated hydrologic studies, the dam was raised slightly, about 3 feet, and a third floodgate was added. And also the 1950s is when Green Mountain Power installed their power plant. In the 1980s, due to ongoing seepage and leakage issues at the dam, there was a project to remediate some of the leakage and seepage that was going on, as well as to add a low-level outlet off of the tunnel of the dam. In the early 2000s, there was further seepage improvements consisting of dewatering wells and a partial cutoff wall that was installed across that original gorge area. And that was a fairly major project. While that project was ongoing, during a normal test operation of the floodgates, one of the gates was in the partially closed position. This prompted emergency repairs at that time, around 2004. And those repairs were made with, at that time, a 10-year service life and a recommendation that pursuit of spillway rehabilitation be pursued. That was really the precursor to this project that's ongoing now. In 2018, Green Mountain Power, as part of their Federal Energy Regulatory Commissioning, licensing, and water quality certificate, installed new equipment and made operational improvements to make their plant more environmentally friendly. And then on deck is the spillway replacement project, which has a price tag in the $40 to $45 million range. It's not entirely clear if it's going to be a replacement or rehabilitation, but we're just kind of in the early throes of it. So now I'm going to move on to the virtual tour. Again, it's kind of hard to do these things online with photographs, but I'll do my best. These images are of the main embankment of the dam, taken from the far west side of the embankment. This image on the left is of the upstream slope. For some context, from where this photograph was taken to that far tree line is about 2,100 feet, or 7 football fields. And from the water level you can see here to the top of the dam is about 40 feet. In this center image is the crest of the dam. You can see it extends, access road extends across the crest that gives us access to the spillway system and the gatehouse. And then on the downstream side, here you can see, again, for scale, this field in the downstream area to the dam crest is about 100 foot vertically. Of note, both the upstream and downstream slope are protected or armored with hand-placed riprap stone that almost give the finished appearance and performance of like a cobblestone road. It's just a testament to the workmanship of the 1930s. Cross section through the dam, just to kind of give you a sense for what the dam is constructed of. The dam is fairly commonly constructed earth embankment, which we'll call a zoned earth embankment, whereas the center of the dam is constructed of an impervious or semi-impervious silty clay material that's protected on its outer aspects by a sand and gravel material. And then on the downstream toe of Waterbury Dam is a rockfill toe. This rockfill essentially consists of materials that range in size from small gravel to Volkswagen-sized stone. Moving on to the outlet works. Again, the outlet works are associated with a tunnel. The tunnel, the intake of which is located out in the reservoir about 100 feet below the normal reservoir level, is a semicircular tunnel that's about 14 feet wide and 11 feet tall. It transmits water upstream through the foundation of the downstream, or through the foundation of the dam to downstream. And this gatehouse in this image to the left intersects that tunnel. Within the gatehouse is this image to the right. You can see the broom or head gate that's located in the gatehouse, and that gate can be lowered about 130 feet to intersect flow in the tunnel and basically shut the flow through the tunnel off. It's typically suspended in the open position as in this image, but this image in the lower right is actually in the closed position. This was obtained during a confined space entry a few years back. As the tunnel extends through the dam, about halfway between the gatehouse on the crest and Green Mountain Power's plants, Green Mountain Power's plant is a transition plate, and that's kind of shown in this image in the bottom right here of the dewatered tunnel. We're looking downstream, and you can see three tubes. The two lower are penstocks that can transfer water to Green Mountain Power's plant, and the upper penstock is a 48-inch penstock that diverts water to a bypass pipe that we have attached to a cone valve. So that's how the state would drain the reservoir should we need to for an emergency or an operational purpose or maintenance. And again, those two bottom pipes convey water to Green Mountain Power's plant. So this next image is a video of a test operation of our bypass pipe, and hopefully this works for everybody. It's a cone valve, and so basically the way this works is during operation, the gate is opened and it works like a fire hose. It dissipates the flow energy by spraying it out kind of sideways, as you can see here. It's fairly impressive to watch, but that's an example of a test operation of that gate. Moving on, the dam has multiple seepage collection systems, including a system of dewatering wells that we've kind of already mentioned. The dam also has a tow drain at the base of the dam, and also has other diaphragm filters and drains associated with the tunnel. So the dam kind of has a long history of seepage issues, and so we have a lot of systems to kind of combat that issue. The main seepage collection system in the dam is associated with dewatering wells, and this image is taken on the downstream slope of the dam along the original river alignment. You can see there's 4 manholes here in this image, and each of those manholes represents a well that extends down through the dam, and within that, those wells are pumps that intersect and pump out leakage water through the dam. And these wells operate 2 to 4 hours a day and pump out several thousand gallons of water per day out of the dam to increase dam stability. This cross section kind of shows from the pump house, the wells extending down into the dam and intersecting that groundwater as it moves through the dam. These 2 images to the right just kind of hope to further depict what the original river gorge through the dam looked like. Again, with that kind of historic weak point, it's a large focus. This plan on the lower right shows kind of a section of what the gorge looks like. It's a roughly 60-foot deep gorge with near vertical to vertical side walls and some overhanging loose rock outcrops. And this image in the upper right is actually of a smaller gorge in the Little River, about half a mile to a mile downstream of the dam, and perhaps gives you some insight into what the gorge probably looked like prior to dam construction, or at least the closest that we have of that still exists today. So moving on, here we are at the spillways. This is probably really the main subject of the presentation. So the spillways, as I said before, consists of 2 components. A gated section and an ungated section. So on the left of this image, to the left, is the gated section of the spillway. It consists of 3 flood control gates. Again, those are called radial arm gates or retainer gates. There's 2 that are 20-foot wide and 1 that's 35-foot wide. And then to the right of that is the uncontrolled spillway section, which is 153.5-foot wide. So the flood control that this reservoir provides is from the invert elevation of the gated section to the invert elevation of the ungated section. So that is about 25.5 feet of vertical rise that we can theoretically store in this reservoir to attenuate and store floodwaters from transmitting downstream and causing flood damages. So typically the gates are left suspended in the open position as they are here in the left image. In the event of a impending or ongoing flood, the gates are closed as they are here in the image to the right. This image to the right was taken in 2019 and represents about the 5th highest reservoir pool the dam has experienced since its construction. The gates are operated according to a reservoir regulation manual that was developed by the Army Corps of Engineers. It basically dictates that when flooding in the Winooski River down in Waterbury reaches action levels, that's our cue to come up and operate and close the gates, and the gates essentially remain closed until that the river level in the Winooski drops below the action level in Waterbury. So one other thing I want to note here is that there's been issues identified with the spillway system, and a lot of that was done in 2004. One of the main issues is the condition of the concrete of the spillway is degraded, and it's degraded through a phenomenon called an alkali silica reaction, which is simply a chemical reaction that causes the concrete to expand and degrade. And that's exactly what happened at the gated section. As the concrete degraded, it expanded, made those spillway openings less wide, so the gates jammed. In this image to the right, you can kind of see some evidence of the condition of the concrete in that far training wall, where you see the white pock marks on the concrete. Also, another deficiency with the spillway is the inability for the spillway to safely impound a full flood pool. And again, a full flood pool would be the water level at the crest of the about 25.5 feet taller, higher than it is in the image to the left. The gates have been found to only be able to safely impound about 60 to 70% of the design flood pool. So, due to the structural inadequacy during a major storm event, we would actually abandon flood control at this dam earlier than the original design intended. So this next image is not actually a Waterbury Dam, thankfully. It's an image of Folsom Dam in California. I'm providing this to give you kind of some insight into what the failure mode of a Tanner Gate failure would look like. This occurred in 1995, and basically the failure mechanism of these style gates is that during extreme loading or high reservoir levels, during attempted operation, the outer struts of these gates can buckle when you try to lift them, and that can be caused by what's called trunnion friction. These gates essentially are fastened to what were called trunnions or hubs or pins, and they rotate on these pins. And in the past, the friction that builds up on that pin over time was not accounted for in a lot of designs, and so when you go to lift these gates, the friction factor on those pins are much higher than what was originally anticipated, and so the hoist system would actually overcome the friction and fail the members of the gate. In engineering design guidance, this type of load had not been widely considered until this failure, and it prompted analysis of many Tanner gates throughout the country, including Waterbury Dam, which was found to have the same deficiency. So these next two videos are just to kind of show you flood operations at the dam, kind of what it looks like. This is spring 2019 event. And this is the some folks have already kind of discussed what the project steps are. Essentially, there's 4 steps, and we're in the first one, which is risk assessment. The objective of the risk assessment is to identify potential failure modes and risks associated with the dam, kind of before just charging ahead with what we know is wrong with the spillway, is to kind of take a holistic look at the dam entirely to make sure there's not other risk factors at the dam that should be addressed at the same time. And the risk assessment's wrapping up right now, and we're moving into the dam safety modification study. Hopefully that will be completed in the time frame here, 2022 to 2023, and then we will move on to design and eventually construction of repairs to reduce the risk associated with the dam, and hopefully this will be completed sometime in the next 10 years, essentially. So there's already been a bit of explanation about risk assessment and kind of what the objectives are, but just kind of restate. This work is being performed by our partner, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, specifically the New England District. The risk assessment is being performed by an impressive multidisciplinary team of engineers and scientists from the Corps. And as defined by the Corps, a risk assessment is a technical document that assembles and synthesizes scientific information to determine whether potential hazard exists and/or the extent of a possible risk to human health, safety, or the environment. So again, a risk assessment includes a detailed evaluation of existing information, plans, records, data. They perform site visits, and they perform some limited engineering computations. The risk assessment includes, evaluation of all components of the dam, and from there, in this process, about 50 potential failure modes, or PFMs for short, were developed. These were ways the dam could foreseeably fail. Kind of understanding that allows you to assign risk to each of these types of failures. Of the 50 failure types that were identified, 5 of those were whittled down to determine to be essentially have the highest risk consequence, while also being possible based on historic performance, observation, data, and evidence. Several of these 5 failure modes do exceed the societal tolerable risk limits. So a working draft of that risk assessment has been developed by the New England District, and we just actually completed our working draft of that last week. As I understand, it's still going through it will be for some time going through the Army Corps internal quality control process. But the work to date does support performing remedial actions at the dam, in addition to spillway concerns, and identifies the potential need to address several other issues. So just to kind of go over some of the potential failure modes that have been kind of preliminary findings from the report, I guess you could say. One of them is embankment overtopping. Again, this would take a very major flood event, or it could be a lesser flood event that's overtopping is caused by essentially debris blockage of the spillways. It's a very high consequence event. This would result in a full failure of the dam, but it's requires somewhat of a lower probability of loading. It takes such a major flood event to make this happen. Again, there are several low points along the crest of the dam that could potentially be susceptible to an overtopping event. And also, the overtopping could also be caused by blockage of the spillways. This image to the right is from a recent flood where we had a good amount of debris come downstream. We have a reservoir and drainage basin here that does have a developed portion in the town of Stowe, and also has a lot of undeveloped areas and wooded areas that haven't experienced a tremendously large flood in the 80-year history. So there probably is a lot of debris ripe for being moved downstream in a major event. So possibility of having debris blockage is real here. Another failure mode was instability of the ungated section of the spillway. This was actually one of the main risk drivers that was identified. And basically what it determined was that the spillway section stability is considered marginal. The spillway can be seen here on the right side of this page here. It's a spillway example section from the original plans. The concrete was placed on sloping, poor quality bedrock. It's not keyed into bedrock in any way, and there's no anchors anchoring it to bedrock. It's just the weight of the concrete, overcoming the load of the water, both horizontal load that water projects, as well as the buoyant force that water projects onto the spillway. So instability of this spillway during a major flood event is a concern. About that, lost control for a second. Some of the other failure modes is the spillway Tanner Gate failure. Again, as mentioned before, the gates are considered structurally inadequate for operations during higher flood pools. One of the things that will need to be figured out is whether full replacement of these gates and structures are necessary, or if there's some partial reuse or rehabilitation that can be done to bring these gates into full operation, full capability to store floodwaters. One thing that should be mentioned, that why a failure of a Tanner Gate would result in a high release. It would not threaten the remainder of the dam, unlike overtopping of the dam that could result in full dam failure. If the Tanner Gate were to fail, while it would still be a very bad day at the dam, it would still result in a lot of water going downstream and a fair amount of flooding. It would be considerably less water going downstream than a full dam failure. It would somewhat still be controlled because it would still be going through a spillway section, so the rest of the dam would probably still be safe. And so we would be dealing with quite a bit less flow. For a comparison, A full failure of the dam has been estimated to be a flow about 1.3 million cubic feet per second. To kind of put that into context, that's about 425 school buses passing you every second. That's a tremendous amount of water. A failure of the Tainer Gate would be more in the 30,000 cubic feet per second range, which is more like 10 school buses passing you per second. Still a tremendous amount, but certainly nowhere near as much. And then another potential failure mode is seepage causing erosion of the foundation materials. Again, this dam has been plagued by many seepage issues over the years, and that's due to the complex and unusual geology that underlies the site. And despite all the work that's been done, the weaknesses still remain in the dam core and the foundation and the bedrock. So, you know, there's still a good likelihood that we'll have to somehow, in some way in the future, potentially deal with some sort of ongoing or new seepage issue. One other finding of one of the other preliminary findings of the report is regarded to Vermont DEC staffing levels. It was noted that, you know, our staff, which is again only 2 engineers, would likely be overwhelmed during a regional flood event, and the breadth of responsibilities including Waterbury Dam, 2 other major flood control dams, and other work would really, you know, limit our impact to a successful response and intervention in the case of emergency at the dam. So we've talked a lot about risks and issues at the dam. Let's talk a little bit about consequences downstream. In the event of a dam failure, whether under normal conditions, defined as normal reservoir levels and flows, or under major flood conditions, the population at risk, or a number of people who are estimated to be within those flood limits, people occupying homes, businesses, etc., are in the range of 1,800 to 5,000 people. Of that 1,800 to 5,000 people in the flood inundation zone, or the population at risk, it's estimated that life loss could be somewhere in the 60 to 820 people range. That's based on estimated flood depths and velocities downstream from, you know, various conditions. You know, also into that estimate comes conditions of the dam failure, like how the dam failed, what the failure mode was, as well as what the notification time downstream was. Is this something that happened, God forbid, hopefully not, in the middle of the night when no one even knew it was happening, or is this something that happened with, you know, days, weeks of observation and realizing this was a potential outcome, and so there's a lot of time to prepare for evacuation. You know, it's been estimated that from a property damage standpoint, between 660 and 1,400 structures could be damaged along the Little River and Winooski River, from Waterbury Reservoir all the way down to Lake Champlain, you know, to a tune of $270 million to $850 million in damages. You know, very major amounts. On a side note, the most current estimate of annual flood benefits is on the order of $3.5 million per year. That basically means that through the existence and operation of Waterbury Dam, about $3.5 million in flood damages are prevented. This next slide here, this is a Waterbury Dam failure flood inundation map that's focused around the town of Waterbury. So this assumes that during a major flood event, the dam failed, and this kind of maps out where the flooding would occur, what the depths of flooding are, anticipated depths are, velocities, and anticipated arrival times. I'd like to call out a few locations. On the lower right of this map shows you know, basically the Waterbury State Office Complex in Waterbury, as well as the Vermont Public Safety Building, experiencing maximum flooding depths up to 40 feet. And that maximum flooding depth would arrive in less than half an hour. That's similar to, for example, the intersection of Route 100 and Route 2, where that traffic circle is in Waterbury. You're looking at depths in the 40 to 45 foot range, and in the arrival time of less than half an hour. So flooding depths are huge. Travel times are short. You know, a potentially very hazardous situation. What this all means. So basically what this means, we're in the first step of a project to, you know, address and reduce risks at the dam. Hopefully this project will be completed in the next 10-year range, hopefully even sooner. The results of the project will be that full flood control capability of the dam will be realized, meaning that this dam will be able to safely impound full flood conditions, while also reducing risks. It also means that per the water quality certificate, once the spillway is fully functioning, the ongoing winter reservoir drawdowns, which are now to store spring floodwaters and reduce load on the spillway, will end, and that will result in improved water quality. It further means, through this process, we've already learned a lot, and we can continue to learn a lot of ways to improve our operations and management of the dam, which should further improve public safety. And it also means that this will support the dam in the future. This will support continued use of the dam for flood protection. It'll support the continued use for hydropower and recreation, hopefully for the next 80 to 100 years. So with that, that's my presentation. Well, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ben. That was particularly compelling, especially the flood inundation risk maps. I would love to have any questions, and there is a function on Teams for those who aren't familiar with it. In the upper right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a little hand. You can click that. It's great. If anybody has a question. We also have folks from the U.S. Army Corps available as well. Francine Chittenden, go ahead.
Yes, this is Francine's husband, Eric, and I'm the current president of the Friends of Waterbury Reservoir. I also have a little bit of a unique situation here. I've been to the meetings probably the last 30 years, almost every meeting on the dam with the civil engineers. Oops, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
For some reason. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Let me just get out and go back in.
While he is doing that, it looks like Representative Dolan, you have a question?
Yes, I do. And thank you for organizing this meeting. It's very informative. I appreciate the presentation. I also appreciate the concerns about the high risk associated with current conditions and the attention to this. And I thank the leadership, both from our federal delegation and the state, to address the needs here. My question is in regards to the improvements that we're undertaking. Will it address the need to attain water quality standards, specifically in-stream flow standards throughout the year, that we could potentially accommodate both enhanced public safety by addressing these risks, as well as riverine ecosystem health?
Thank you, Representative Dolan. Ben, would you like to field that? Or would you like me to, or?
You're probably better poised for that one, Neil.
Okay, sure. So Ben did mention in his presentation that one of the benefits of this project is that it will allow the reservoir to be operated in accordance with the water quality certification. That's a license that the department grants that allows the operation of the hydropower facility and ensures that its operation does not unduly impact water quality conditions in the reservoir or downstream. Once the dam is capable physically of being managed in a run-of-river manner, then the water quality certification will require that Green Mountain Power manage it in that way, and that will absolutely restore uses to the downstream Little River. So that's a great benefit.
Thank you.
I'm back.
Okay, very good, sir. Go ahead.
Eric Chittenden again, president of the Friends of Waterbury Reservoir, and I've been going to meetings. Well, there were about the dam since about the late 70s, and my brother-in-law was head of the civil engineering department at the University of Vermont, and he invited me to a couple that he was a part of. But one of the things that has come up, has there been a risk assessment yet done on this project?
Ben, I'll go ahead and let you take that.
Sure. The risk assessment is underway. That's the current ongoing work that's been, is currently in working draft form and will be finalized soon.
Okay. On top of that, one of the things that they started working on, they were going to drill, I think, 6 or 7 6-foot diameter holes and they started doing that. I think they got to the 4th dig when they lost the bit of 6-foot diameter carborundum bit years ago. I don't know if that thing is still down there. Maybe it is. But anyway, somebody used the word perforation. He said basically by drilling these holes, we have sort of perforated the dam. And he thought he didn't know, but he said it was a suggestion that maybe it weakened it. And there's that term they use, piping. You're familiar with that. And part of it was to, I think it was going to create and the other part of it, well, I should say, he said that once the concrete sets up, concrete contracts, and around the edge between the dam and the concrete thing that they put in there, there would be actually a pathway for water going through instead of sealing it off. So I'd like to know if those things came up, but and there are a couple other things. One is that if this dam ever breached as a result of raising the water to the tainter gates, is there a commitment in advance to rebuild this thing better and stronger than it is now? Because I understand that the life of these dams is about 56 years. Is that right?
Okay, thank you, Eric. So there's 2 or 3 questions in there. So Ben, the status of the secant wall and contraction, the rebuildability. Go ahead.
I guess to start with the first question, during those seepage repairs in the early 2000s, yes, they attempted to install what was called a secant pile wall, which is basically a series of discrete concrete pilings that are installed adjacent to one another, with the original intent to go have those discrete concrete pile elements be installed directly next to each other to actually form an impermeable barrier across the original river gorge. That was the original intent. As you stated, there was technical complications during those installations, and they were actually not completed. So that cutoff wall is only partially, only exists partially in the embankment of the dam. What was also found, though, is that the dewatering wells that I showed in the seepage control portion of the presentation were very effective in lowering the quantity of water in the dam, the leakage water in the dam, and improving the stability of the dam. So those remaining concrete elements are I don't want to say not important, but are not really functioning as a seepage control element, but nor are they, I would say, nor are they weakening the dam in any way. I guess that hopefully addresses that part of the question. In terms of rebuildability, that's a very challenging question to answer. I'd say that our mission is to have that consequence of a full dam failure never happen here. Hopefully it never will. It's a little bit hard to answer if this ever were to happen, if the dam would be rebuilt or not. I don't know. Hopefully, through the measures being taken in this project and the care of my program in the future and the state and with our federal partners, we can prevent anything like that from ever happening.
Thank you,
Okay.
Ben.
Can I throw out just another quick question? Are you or somebody in line?
I'll tell you what, Mr. Chittenden, let's just we'll check the audience and see if there are any other questions.
Okay.
Yes, this is Mike Bard. I'm a selectman in Waterbury.
Go ahead, Mike.
One, I know I tried to get it on Teams, but it didn't seem to boot up. Or recording, because I didn't get any of the visuals. Is there a recording of this presentation?
Yes, sir. I actually did start recording this at the beginning, just as we got into the commissioner's remarks. So Ben's entire presentation will be available.
Okay, great. My other question is, this is a more direct question. If we do get into a repair situation, I assume there's going to be a drawdown. Would it be similar to the drawdown with the repairs of early 2000s? And how long of a repair period would there be if there was a major repair done to the dam?
Ben, are you in a position to answer that, or perhaps folks from the Corps might be able to help out?
I guess I would say that I don't think we know, we don't entirely know yet. We're still in the risk assessment phase. We don't actually know what our repairs are going to be. And since we don't know that, we don't know yet a partial drawdown and what the time frame is going to be. The project could, for example, at the spillway, if it ends up being a full reconstruction, that will be, probably a different approach to water control than if it's a rehabilitation of the existing work. So we're not kind of in a position to know the answer to that yet.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay. Mr. Chittenden, I believe you had one more or a follow-up. Nope. Okay. In that case, thank you, Ben, very much for the presentations. As I said, super compelling. And again, for those on the audience, this is being recorded, and we'll find a way to put this online so folks can have access to it, or perhaps, Ben, we can put a standalone version of your presentation online as well, which would be a nice resource for folks to have. Ben, you alluded to the timeline a little bit, and I just wanted to offer the opportunity to introduce Mr. Eric Blatt, Director of Engineering for the water investment, in case, Eric, you wanted to add anything else around the timeline for this at this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as Ben has indicated, we don't yet know the full scope of the rehab project, but just, on a really rough basis, what we're projecting at the moment is a 2-year period to conduct this dam safety modification report that'll probably get underway this spring. And at the conclusion of that process, the final design will be initiated. It's unclear whether that process will run a year to 2 years. And then once design is completed, we move into the construction phase. And it's also unclear just how long the construction will be. As Ben had mentioned, we don't yet know how long the reservoir will have to be drawn down, which will be a function of the scope of the construction. On probably the most aggressive schedule, we would be looking at construction starting in spring 2025. And right now, these are gross estimates. The overall project cost has got an estimate of $45 million between the state federal share. We're looking at roughly $28.8 million federal dollars and $16.2 million in state funds.
And I'll pick up on that. Thank you, Eric. And just reference some of the remarks that Thea Wurzburg from Congressman Welch's office had said earlier, that we are certainly working on the state cost share with our congressional delegation to make this as affordable as practical within the available federal funds that are in the accounts for the project. So that will develop over time. Are there any additional questions? Or folks from the Corps, Mr. Riccone or others, any additional remarks that you'd like to provide?
I'll ask my team. I don't know, John, Barbara, Mike, anybody have anything from the Corps?
No, Scott, this is John Kennelly. No, we don't have any comment. We don't have any questions or comments. Just really pleased to be working with the state. It's been a great partnership, and look forward to continuing into the dam safety modification studies.
All right, very good. Thank you. It's nice to see you, John. Happy New Year.
Me too.
Yeah. All right. Well, so folks, thank you very much. With that, if there are no other questions, I think we are wrapped up. I'll make sure and get web links to the recording for this and Ben's presentation online. And we'll look forward to keeping people up to speed on how this project progresses, but it is definitely progressing. So with that, thank you very much. I will stop the recording at this point. And Ben, thank you so much for preparing that excellent presentation. Good day.
Thanks all. Take care.
So long.
Thank you.